Hi, everybody. This is Crystal Proxmeyer of Oakland County Times, and we're here today with Melanie Macey, who is running for state representative in District 6. How are you today?
I'm great. Crystal, how are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for doing this interview. Can you just tell us why you decided to run?
Yeah, well, I first ran for office in 2017 after Trump was elected the first time. And then it was I wanted to show my children that our country and our rights and our community are worth fighting for. So I spent 8 years on the Royal Oak City Commission, listening to people and leading on policies that I thought would strengthen our community and make our daily lives better. And then as an attorney, I've been focused on voting rights and election law, working on policy side by side with legislators in Lansing and election administrators and advocates. So I felt like I was doing all this good work and it was feeling so hopeful. And then I was pretty shocked and devastated when Trump won re-election, and it felt like he wasted no time in attacking our fundamental rights and protections and stacking the deck in favor of billionaires and corporate interests over us, everyday working families. So I knew we needed legislators in Lansing who were prepared to stand up and fight. Um, our current representative, Natalie Price, has been an absolute warrior for our district. And when she decided to run for state senate, I realized we needed someone to step up for the sixth House district, and that I have the background and the commitment to be a really effective advocate. This is a strong Democratic district, and it should be represented by a strong progressive voice and someone who's a leader on these kind of issues in the legislature. And I really think that my experience and skills have prepared me for that. So, I mean, we're at a critical moment right now in our nation's history, and it feels like democracy itself is at risk. So, once again, I want to show my kids that we don't give up the fight.
So, what are some of the things that you'd like to work on if you're elected?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that one of the biggest reasons that I'm running is because I think that states are going to really have to do the work to push back really aggressively against the damage being done by the Trump administration on the federal level that is impacting us right here in Michigan. So it's not time to just wait and hope that the federal government is going to do the work that's protecting people's rights and giving us health care, or even respecting basic democratic norms. So the states are going to have to take the leadership role on this. So kind of the basic level, one major priority for me would be strengthening our democracy by protecting our voting rights. So we saw just recently on the national level with the National Voting Rights Act, kind of the final pillar being torn down by the recent Supreme Court decision. So here at Michigan, we have a pretty good system. It's been working for years, and we've got great advocates in the nonprofit sector who are working, we're doing this work, but we really need to pass a state voting rights act to strengthen our protections against discrimination and voter suppression, and make sure that we have the ability for every eligible voter to participate in our democracy. Um, I do think we need to stay focused on economic issues. We know that families are under enormous pressure and the strain is growing every day. So this covers a lot of different areas. It can mean healthcare and childcare. Trump's also chipping away at the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and those protections. And the state can act as a gap filler to make sure that people don't lose that access to affordable care. And then we also need to make sure we're expanding access to affordable childcare, because that's a really difficult decision point for families right now, parents having to decide between their own jobs and getting access to viable childcare for their children. And it's a very difficult battle, I'm well aware. We also need to think about investing in clean energy. There's energy efficiency out there that those combined can really lower utility costs for people while addressing climate change. And that's a critical piece of this. So we know that this just isn't about climate change. It's not just an environmental issue anymore. Clean energy is an affordability issue. And we're finding now that some clean energies are actually more affordable. And it's an economic opportunity issue for our state. So we have the chance to create union jobs, good paying jobs that will build us into this leader in this economy, the clean energy economy, but we have to make those investments sooner rather than later. And then also, I'm very interested in public education. So, because I have those three kids in the schools that I've got to witness firsthand what teachers and staff are up against, and they are doing a lot of very difficult work and they have inadequate resources to do what they need to get done. So I want to make sure that schools have the funding they need. There's a lot of pressures that come from that, including class sizes, mental health support, the support staff in the schools and the classes. And then I also want to make sure that we are making teaching a profession that people are seeking to go to, that we get talented people in and we retain them by making sure that they're respected and also they are compensated the way that they should be and are able to have a secure and comfortable retirement as well.
You mentioned being an attorney. Can you tell us a little bit more about your professional background and some of those skills that you bring to the table?
Yeah, sure. So as a policy and government affairs director at Promote the Vote, I had an opportunity to do a lot of policy work, so gaining extensive experience at the state level. So we're kind of on the front lines defending the voting rights here in Michigan. It meant helping to draft legislation, testifying before committees. And that was where I was working with the legislators and administrators and also the voting rights advocates to do this work, just advancing both voter protection, but also accessibility. And through that, I've had the benefit of watching very skilled legislators at work, sort of every phase of the process, and I could kind of take note of what their approaches were and what worked best. So, and I also had the opportunity to coordinate and facilitate coalitions that were made up of organizations and advocates, really fantastic people and groups that had different priorities and approaches, because not everybody is doing democracy work as their main bread and butter, but a lot of organizations have democracy work as part of their full package. So it kind of helped me figure out about relationship building and strategic thinking and coalition management, and when trying to accomplish kind of difficult policy goals. And prior to that, like in the years after graduating from law school, I was a legal aid attorney. We serving low-income individuals and families. I did that kind of on and off while raising my children. I think that really gave me a good understanding of the barriers that people face just trying to navigate, live life. So, housing, job insecurity, services that should be available to them, and just even interacting with the government at all. It was shocking to me what a difference it made to have a lawyer present, how it changed the dialogue. So, I kind of learned from that these policies we're talking about are not abstract. People are dealing with the consequences of them every day.
What are some of the ways you've been involved in the community?
Well, so I've been a Royal Oak City Commissioner for the last 8 years. And through that, I was on a number of boards in the community. So Parks and Rec and Senior Services, Commission for the Arts, City School Liaison, the Juneteenth Planning Committee, and the Audit Review Committee. Before I was on the City Commission, I was appointed to the Library Board, the Royal Oak Public Library Board. So I did my full 9 years on that board, the last few as the president. For the school district, I'm on the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Council. I've been on that since its founding, and I was actually on the committee that came up with the founding of it prior to that. So I've been doing that work for some time with the district. And also the PTA level. So I'm currently the secretary of the middle school PTA, and I'm the president-elect for this upcoming year. And then I got those 3 kids, so I'm chasing them around and end up doing a lot of things through that. So I've coached Girls on the Run, Stride, which is the boys' version of Girls on the Run. Done some recreational soccer coaching, not my forte, but I've done it. And now that my kids, they're kind of all over, but I've been in the high school now, so now I'm doing work with the athletic boosters at the high school. And I'm also a Sunday school teacher at St. John's Episcopal Church. I sort of fell into that because it was the only way I could make my kids go. And now I've continued doing it because I enjoy working with the kids.
So in this race, there is some competition for this seat. Why should the voters pick you?
Yeah, I mean, I think voters should pick me because I have the combination of the background experience, the ability to be an effective advocate, and the passion, the desire that is really critical for the moment that we're living in right now. So I have spent years doing the work of governing, building coalition, and pushing forward on this progressive policy. And so I've done that both here at City Commission and at the state level with my policy work from Promote the Vote. So, I understand how the government works, how policy gets from an idea to a reality, and how government interacts at different levels to function or perhaps to not function. But I've seen how things that happen in Lansing and Washington are affecting people on the ground. And I, have experience from my time as a city commission in building coalitions and building relationships and making sure that even if we have differing perspectives and different approaches to how things get done, that we do get things done and we are able to move on from one battle to the next. And it's not constant deadlock. But beyond my experience, I do think that this moment requires people who are passionate and really care deeply about what's happening in the world right now. And I'm running because I really believe that so many of our fundamental protections are at risk right now. So our very democracy, our civil rights, our education system, our environment, and just basic economic justice, like all of those are things that have been repeatedly threatened over the last few years. And we need to push back as soon as we can and as strongly as we can. And I want to be part of that fight. I also think I have an ability to communicate issues pretty clearly to people. I've done work as a lawyer, as a legal aid attorney, and also as a city commissioner, and also kind of as a trainer for election law to volunteers and voters. And I just have a knack for kind of helping people come to terms with systems that are inaccessible and confusing and trying to get them to understand and to participate. So I think voters overall are looking for somebody who has that shared value system, but then I think they want someone who can take those shared values and put them to work. They know someone who knows how government functions and can get to work strong on day one. And I think I'm the best candidate for that.
Voters want more information about you and your campaign. Where can they go?
So I have a website, melaniemacey.com. And I also have a Facebook page and Instagram account. So my handle is at Melanie Macey MI for Instagram. And then my Facebook page is, I think, Melanie Macey, Michigan, that you can just search for the 6th district, Melanie Macey.
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you, Crystal. Appreciate it.